So, right, we're here in SY23, your amazing restaurant in Aberystwyth. Right, so we're here with Nathan Davies at SY23 in Aberystwyth, and we've known each other for a long time. If you could just tell the guys who are watching how we know each other, that'd be amazing.
So it's probably been, what, seven years or so?
Yeah,
we've been dealing with each other through various bits and bobs, different restaurants and everything else, but yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, we've been here since 2019 in December, so it's the first time you've been here, obviously, with everything that's been going on and stuff. So it's nice to have you here. We've been using you since we opened, and it kind of, you know, a big part of what we're doing. And we always just give you a call or a text or whatever else, and just say like, what's the crack with this? Any new products? So we do keep in touch every now and again, but it's nice to have you here so you can see what we're doing, really. And,
yeah, you know. It's great to finally make it, and we're going to come and eat here and really sort of like, although I know your food, it's always good just to sort of see where you're at now and get cracking into that.
That's it. I think, you know, with you eating where we've worked in the past, and that, like, I think here hopefully it'll be quite a surprise as to like what it is, because I think our food style has transformed a lot since like December 19 when we opened, in a really good way, and like kind of built up our own repertoire of dishes now that are us. You know, rather than, it's like anything really. Like when you first leave your job, you're always going to be heavily influenced by that job until you settle down, until you kind of go your own route. And I think that's the thing with us. We still use those Asian, Japanese ingredients and everything else, but I think we're less Asian inspired really than we ever have been, but we still use those same ingredients. So it's quite nice how we mix like a bit of Basque country cooking with like the turbot and all that sort of stuff, and like, you know, the grill that we use, it's not so much like yakitori style grill like you probably expect. It's more Argentinian. It's more like Argentinian, Basque, that direction with the barbecue, rather than real intense yakitori stuff, and you know, so which kind of catches people a little bit off guard, I think, with what we do. So it's good. I'm looking forward to you trying it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying it. You're talking before about like it's just sort of getting into the vibe of things now. Things have started settling down with COVID, and obviously opening basically a month before or a couple of months before COVID happened. But like, I think nothing happens in a vacuum. You're a kind of collection of your experiences, aren't you? So to think that you're not going to carry forward any of the stuff from your previous positions and things like that is a bit unlikely. And then the more you're kind of doing what you're doing now, the more that's going to sort of develop into its own thing. And you're a collection of, you know, going and visiting all these cool restaurants that we've got in Britain, and taking a lot of the inspiration from that, and the conversations we all have with each other while we're, you know, maybe not cooking, but maybe at events or stuff like that.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive believer that you know your menu should be like a CV, and I've said this before, but like, you should be going and using your skills from all those different places, all those different experiences. Like, you know, I went to cook at an event in San Sebastian, and like, we did our cooking, which was dead good fun, but it's the stuff that I saw around us, I was like really inspired by that. But your menu should tell a story, rather than it being, you know, say back in the 90s, everybody would have Pierre Coffin this on their menu if they'd worked there. Like now, have people always a bit shy with that because they think they're going to get done for like imitating a dish or whatever else. And I just think, you know what, it's like, it's not that at all. I think the important thing is using those skills. You went to work for that person or them people for a reason.
And if
you've
it
got
eats
the skills,
well,
use it.
If it eats good and tastes great, get it on the menu.
100%.
You know, don't worry about it.
So I love that side of things, and I'm very proud of, you know, that I worked with Gaz for such a long time, and I'd be nuts to not carry forward a lot of those skills. But also the conversations we have in the kitchen with the lads. You know, Cuba, my head chef, he's from Poland, and he's impacted the menu, as has Charlie. You know, who's from Liverpool. He's a Scouser, and he's got his own like things with food. He lived in America. He's travelled, and we all talk together. And then what you get there is like a little cauldron of just ideas that kind of bubble over, and the dishes have changed massively because of that. And that's what's ace about kitchen, and surrounding yourself with the people and the team that are driven for the same goal, but have not come from the same place. So it's just, it just hits it in like a junction. You're just like, right, where are we going? And it's just, I think it's class.
So SY23 really is a pot of all the experiences of all those people that are coming together. Yeah. But the thing is, you've got to get out into the world and work in other places, experience other things, try other people's food, try other cultures. But what I think you have done, and we've done with SushiSushi, is because I'm from Sheffield and we're based in Sheffield, but you kind of need to have gone out. But I think it's really important to come back and make, you know, where you're from, or where you're from, better with your experiences. And it's not sort of like changing the area, it's like enriching it. And you've created this place in Aberystwyth, which is a beautiful place, but to make something that's got this sort of like global knowledge level in here, it's another reason to come here. Yeah. It's great.
Well, I grew up here. I grew up about 30 miles south, so this is home. Like, you know, so I completely see what you're saying there. Like, this is home. Like, I grew up. That's why I'm so passionate about getting it done here, and like that's why we called it SY23. We wanted it to be a location. You know, we enhance the amazing local produce that we've got with a few bits and bobs from further afield, which is where you come in.
And ideas from further afield.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we've got the best lamb in the world. You know, won't really have a conversation about it, it's just the truth. But then to sort of elevate it and to lift it, like you say, you've got these different experiences where you've maybe seen different techniques. You know, the way that we cook it, for example, is quite Argentinian, the way that we cook it over the fire. But then we've also got, you know, other bits and bobs that we use, like soys, to season it rather than salt. So it kind of goes real full circle, and just turns into something that's quite different. I mean, although it's what we kind of champion here is like local produce. That's we know the producers. My kids will go to the same school as their kids. They'll play football. So I mean, it's such a community thing. But then to kind of elevate that to the level we want to get to, we just use these lovely little things to season things, or to dress it, or to finish it, and it just pops. It just explodes into like something that's, I think, is pretty ace. So
yeah, man, it's like, rather than you think, okay, local, I want to do local, but how local and for how much stuff has to be local? I know you've made these tables, so that's pretty local. But what are you going to do? Have like locally made light bulbs? Are you going to if the soy sauce tastes better than the salt?
Yeah.
Then take that produce, the lamb, and make it as good as it can be. Because we're living in a global world now, and you've got access to all kinds of interesting things. So how far can you take local produce? You know what I mean? You've done that amazingly.
And that's it. And that's the balance. We always talk about the balance, and it's something we're really conscious of. There's an expectation of quality that we relay to our guests, and that you have to hit that quality while keeping with your, you know, with your beliefs and your core belief in that we'll champion local produce. But exactly like you say, how far do you go? Do you let quality sacrifice because you want to keep that net so close? Or do you say, if we go outside of this circle for X, Y, or Z, then we might as well get the best in the world? So when it comes to like soy, you know, if we're going to go outside the circle of our ingredients pool, which is, you know, our core, if we're going to go at that to get something that's going to season it and enrich that dish, then we might as well get the best possible one. And same as if we were to get chocolate, for example, we're very conscious about the amount of chocolate we use, like we are with other ingredients that are away. But if we're going to get them, we might as well get the best we can possibly get.
And you want to understand it as well.
Exactly.
So like, who's made it, why have they made it in this way, and what is it used for normally? Use that experience that's been built up over the years, and then bring that in. It's like, you were talking about Argentinian cooking, I mean, like, talk about locally, are you only supposed to use Welsh cooking techniques?
Yeah.
So like cooking on open fire, it's Argentinian, but you're still doing local food on that, you're adding to it. And with cooking processes, again, obviously French cooking is a massive part of gastronomy. Loads of processes you can use in your cooking to make Welsh food taste better. And it's the same with Japanese techniques, you know, things like wrapping things in kombu, for example, like fish in kombu, just to get that umami into it. You're not making it not a bit of local fish. You're just using these world techniques to improve local flavour, I guess.
Exactly. And that's it. Like we want to do exactly that. We want to just take all the bits and bobs, and we use local charcoal. That's kind of at our core of cooking. But then when it comes to us doing one of the dishes, you know, we use this bitchy tan that we get from you, and it's the best possible finish for the dish. Like we burn a little meringue, which you'll see and smell later. It's amazing. That local charcoal, you can't you can't get the same result from it. So, like you say, really, like you go to a limit, and then after that limit, then it becomes about how do we take it that step further, and that step further sometimes is using something a little bit different, something that's got to sort of roll with it. So
yeah, I mean, we're living in this global world, and you've got, you know, people from all over, even Liverpool, working here, and you're bringing all that bit of knowledge in as well. So it'd be daft to not think of it in a global way. How do we articulate that it's not a Japanese influence dish, it's not a Argentinian influence dish, it's just your food cooked with the experiences of yourself and the staff and the local area and the local suppliers. What does local mean anymore? Because
how far is local?
How far is local? So like, it's just as easy for you to get something from us in Sheffield as it probably is to get something from a supplier locally, just because the way the courier networks are set up.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've shipped it all the way from Japan, but we've put that in in a shipping container in global, already set up global networks.
Yeah.
So the actual carbon footprint of that is pretty bloody low.
Yeah.
Because there's 80,000 shipping containers on this ship, and then they're full to the roof. So the actual carbon footprint of that bottle of soy sauce, especially if you're using a carbon neutral or a carbon offset courier from our warehouse to you, you can get that the next day with relatively low carbon. It's really confusing what local means anymore.
Yeah, it is difficult, and I feel like, you know,
because we know what we're talking about with the produce as well.
Yeah.
So like, you are almost dealing with someone we've not made it, but we know 100% how it's made. So you can get real access to that knowings of that product. But it's about as not local as it possibly could be. So it's confusing these days, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is, and I think that's the thing with, you know, with you guys, like you're saying about you knowing who's produced it, why, means that actually, you know,
and how
exactly. So we can be, you know, as informed as we possibly could be about making a decision as to what we're going to use, where we're going to get it from, everything else. So, you know,
that's what you would do with a local supplier as well.
Yes, I think it's important that we've still got that connection with everything that we're using.
So it's about connections.
It is about connection, yeah.
So the thing what local gives you is connection to the people and therefore the produce.
Yeah.
So can we use modern techniques of connecting people to connect the customer ultimately to the producer? Because that's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're just trying to
I think you do it.
We're trying to do it down the line, aren't we? We're trying to connect the producers who love doing what they're doing to the customer who's eating it and can taste that passion.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get out of the way, I suppose, aren't we?
And I think that's the thing as well. Like, you know, what you'll do is, you know, although some stuff is made on a bigger scale to a brilliant quality, you also do that thing that we really love, which is the smaller scale stuff, like the really artisan, which the fucking word gets used and abused on it, but it is it is what it is. They really, you're connecting with people that are producing really small, really delicate numbers of a certain thing that's like 12th generation. They've always done it for this.
And more.
Yeah, and then you're like, wow, okay, that's cool, you know. So yeah, and it kind of all links when you go in, when you're trying to achieve what we're trying to achieve in terms of quality and standard set for ourselves to pass on to our guests. It's the same thing when you're trying to use, when you've got that connection with an ingredient which you know, and because you know a lot about it, you can believe in it, and when you use it, then you have your wholehearted, you know, you can stand behind it. And like we're saying, if you're going to get something from away, make sure it's good and worth going away for. If you're fully informed about everything about it and you feel as though you have a connection with that person you've never met, because you know everything about them, and it's, you know, we have as good a connection with some of those producers, although we've never met them, as Rob, that I'll see almost on a daily basis. That's what's cool, and that's what means it's worth going out of that net of breaking the local to get that.
But as long as you've got that connection, that's the key, isn't it? And if we're making that as smooth as possible with information, sometimes you've got to feel that connection through different ways. Like some of it these days, it can be through almost video footage, it can be phone calls, it can be messaging each other through, you know, you can find a producer. You know, we actually, have you spoke to the producer of the Koji soy sauce before?
Yeah, they messaged me after.
Via email.
Yeah.
So you're emailing, you know, they're not up the road, but you're emailing regularly the person who makes the koji in a factory. They're in Fukushima in Japan.
Well, we did GBM and I think they got in touch with you.
I took a screenshot of the telly. I don't know if I was breaching copyright. Photographed the telly, and I DM'd their Instagram just because it was convenient.
Yeah.
And just said, guess what? One of our customers, Nathan's, using your koji soy sauce on Great British Menu, and they've accidentally left the label showing, so I've screenshotted it for you. And they all loved it, and they go, oh, can we contact him directly?
They sent me a message and were just like, how do you use it? And
they love it.
Yeah.
They can't believe like that you're not just making miso with it.
Yeah, it's class. Like so that connection, you know, through you guys has kind of come really, really organically. But you know, there's a connection there, and I think they messaged me this time as well because we used it again. I mean, like we spoke about this earlier, we laughed and said like if there was one ingredient that we couldn't live without from everything that we get from you guys, it's that.
The koji soy.
The koji soy, and it's.
Why is that then?
I don't really know. It's because
it's drinkable, isn't it?
It is, and it's very, very unique, and it tastes like it's been produced with love. Do you know what I mean? Like they care about it. It's not.
Did you know it's a collaboration product? That.
Really?
Yeah. So they are not soy sauce producers. They are koji producers.
Right.
So they make things with koji in it. So they make the koji. Well, because in Japan there's like loads of sub artisans. So like. If you're making a knife, there's a guy who does the grinding, there's a guy who does the forging, there's a guy who does etching. So there's not a knife maker, there might be a guy who makes handles. So with this, they buy the spores off somebody else, they'll start inoculating it and making the koji on the rice and get that to go in until you get the sort of the cake of rice. And then they'll work with other producers who make other things. So the soy sauce is actually made by the Fukushima Soy Sauce Brewing Company, which is not Horai Honten who make the koji soy.
Right.
But what they do is because the peak age for soy sauce is 2 years, so all these overaged soys, it isn't actually as good in inverted commas as the 2 years the best.
Yeah.
And to get more flavour out of the soy, it isn't like aging it more. It's using different fresh produce, different from different places. It's whether you use different varieties of those products. So the devil's in the detail, and also the terroir, where they come from, whether you're using traditional wooden barrels, how old the barrels are. There's all sorts of different variables. Yeah. But the best age is 2 years for the soy sauce. So what they do is they buy a 1 year soy sauce from the Fukushima Soy Sauce Brewing Company, and then they add their activated rice grains that have got the koji in them and put it in it, but then do the second year of fermentation with that in it.
Got you.
And
so
then it produces. Yeah. So it starts off as someone else's product, and then they collaborate.
Make it their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it comes out like it does, which is mint, isn't it?
It's class because we use it in like our.
Do you ever pass the grains off?
We don't eat the grains. I know you said this to me before. Like, why don't you eat them? We use it like it goes into like our. We make a very loose termed sanbeizu burnt butter sauce, where we do like the traditional 3-cup sauce, but then we add lots of burnt butter to it and finish it with a little bit of cultured miso butter to make like a butter sauce. And that kind of, it's salty, but it's got a sweetness to it. It's kind of got loads more going on.
Well, sanbeizu basically means balance.
Yeah.
Do you know what sanbeizu means? So san means 3.
Yeah.
Bai is kind of a measuring device, a cup, and zu is vinegar.
Yeah.
So, like in this case, it's 3 cups vinegar, or 3 cups sauce, like you said, which
we
basically means balance.
We loosely follow that one.
Yeah,
we use the aged vinegar, we use the koji soy, we use the red miso, we use the nice mirin that's you could literally drink.
So it's the sanbeizu vibe, and then modified a bit with these other things.
Well, I
love the fact you put butter in it as well, which gives it that sort of rich European edge.
It's exactly that. Like we're kind of looking to make a butter sauce better. And that's kind of the whole ethos of our style of cooking. Really, is we are not a Japanese restaurant. We are not an Asian restaurant. We are not an Italian restaurant. Neither are we a Spanish or a French. The good thing with our style of food is that it's linked by the fire. So it means we can get away with pretty much anything, because as long as it all returns back to the fire, that's our core. That's our style, if you want. And when we barbecue, we don't barbecue like the deep south, where you'll have like, whole hog barbecue. That for me is like big barbecue. We grill really well, I think.
Okay.
And that's kind of, so our food is cooked over open fire, and that's where the link with all of the dishes comes. So if we do a dish that's more San Sebastian inspired, the way we cook the turbot, for example, but then we season the dashi, which again, Basque fish with dashi, seasoned with mirin and rice vinegar. The way the way it's linked is the fire to the next course, which could be, you know, it could be the most local of local produce that is almost untouched, but it just sees the fire a little bit. Nothing spikes out as being like, that's a very Asian dish, that's a very Spanish dish, that's a very Italian dish. So it allows us to do whatever we want. We're not shoehorned into like a style, and it means that we can use miso through the dishes, and it doesn't sabotage that being a this dish or whatever. And when we come to desserts, we use a lot of miso in the desserts. No, we make a miso caramel, which is just so delicious.
I love miso caramel.
Yeah, and
because it's salted caramel, isn't it? But with a bit of extra depth.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we dodge using a lot. I mean, we use a bit of salt. We brine with salt, for example. We never finish with salt like we used to. Like, you know, 10 years ago when I was training in the classical French way, like you'd finish a dish with salt to season it, whereas, you know, you'd sort of pride yourself on having like the best, you know, sea salt or flakes or whatever it was to finish that dish. Now we're not using that. We're using soys, or we're using something else.
Do you glaze with like a tare? Like, they call it tare, which means sauce in Japanese. Do you ever use like the glaze?
Yeah, we
like
do. But
final glaze.
We make our own with basically what we do is we use soy, and we use a little bit of nori, but with some glucose in it to kind of balance it.
So the nori's blitzed.
No,
put in it.
Toasted, and then we drop it in, so that it helps thicken it a little. We use a little bit of glucose to again to thicken it, but also to balance it, so it's not too salty, and also makes it lovely and sticky.
Cool, man. Mega, we've got some of the first dish in front of us. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about it. Yeah.
This is some sea bream. So this is line caught sea bream that we've cooked just on the one side. Then we've got the burnt butter sauce that we talked about a bit earlier. So that's that loose sort of sambazu vibe with the aged rice, the koji soy. Finish it to give it like nice depth with the burnt butter and a bit of miso. And then we've got some local sea vegetables, so some dulse, which is like the purple sea weed. And then we've got some purslane that's been pickled in a little rice pickle. And then we've got that furikake with the toasted nori and the grains, and a bit of scallop in there as well for some added sort of depth.
And there's this nori powder that I can see.
You kind of get that lovely smell of it, and that's the nori powder. So should we tuck into it so you can enjoy it?
Let's go.
So this is all of the knife, fork, spoon job, this one.
I was going to say, I can't work out which one to use.
Yeah.
I'm going to go knife, fork and spoon. Might go knife and fork first. Oh, it's bloody interesting flavour, mate. To put that sort of you said sambazu, like a balanced, sweet, dashy vinegar, I suppose. I mean, that is an overused phrase, dashy vinegar. But to give it that sort of vibe, but then to sort of give it that European richness with the butter.
Yeah.
And I think the miso, although it's not European, sort of fits in with butter and richness and stuff.
Exactly.
So you get a bit of everything. You get the balanced vinegar, but then you get the balance with the richness sort of angle as well.
And that's it. Like, this is where sushi really comes into our menu, really, and like where you come into it by advising us on ingredients that we're not trying to make a Japanese dish. It is quite Japanese, but also there's a lot of other stuff that's going on there that, you know, like the clarity I think that you get through using very good quality Japanese ingredients, whether it's the vinegars, the soys, the misos, the clarity of flavour really just, it enhances that beautiful piece of bream, or that piece of fit, whatever it is you're doing, rather than overpowers it. And like, that's the balance that we're kind of trying to strike with this.
You can pick out the different flavours. It's not like a noise. Yeah. It's not like a noise of flavours.
Good.
You've got like, you know, when you listen to music and you can hear the cymbals, you can hear the bass drum, and you can hear the tom-toms. It's not just a flat noise. You can hear it all going, even though it's all going at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're going for. And we always, the course before this comes out in the restaurant, we always serve a loaf of our bread. So, you know, the bread's made with local grains. It's very, very local. But then we serve with it some cultured miso butter. So we sour the butter.
That's this here.
That's that there, yeah. And then what we've done with that, he's finished it. Instead of the salt, we use some red miso. So that's kind of like the saltiness in it, but also that like added umami. The butter's got like a cheesiness to it because of it being sour. So
miso and cheese, great.
Yeah, exactly. When we say like by the time you get to the end of this dish, We always give the bread, and when we give the bread, we always say like, use it to mop up sauces.
So do you bring this out towards the end, or do you bring it out at the same time?
So we'll bring that out just before, but when we put it down, we'll explain to them like, use the
set
bread as you would at home. We give a whole loaf, which seems like an overwhelming amount of bread, but all the sauces, dip it into, have it as bread and butter. And it's another one of those Japanese ingredients that in the miso in this that doesn't make that bread and butter Japanese in any way, shape or form. It's still very classical. It's just enhancing and enriching that.
It's just taking that flavour on another step.
Exactly, yeah.
Definitely. I definitely don't think, as I'm eating this is a Japanese dish. I wouldn't think, oh, I'm in Japan now. It's just taken the flavours that you've got and just took them in a further direction rather than a wonky direction. It's not a twist.
Thank God for that. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. It's just the succulent of seasoning. And this is one of them dishes that we do with lots of different. I mean, fish bream is what we can get today. Tomorrow we might get lobster.
Oh.
Day after we might get scallop. We might do this with mackerel.
So you were getting this from the harbour?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So we really dictated to, and kind of go back to that local thing, by what we can get. But the core of the dish, with that sort of ingredients that we can depend on and we can rely on, the core of the dish stays the same. The beautiful piece of fish that we put in there, or shellfish, that changes so often. But we just adjust that dish ever so slightly to accommodate that. But you can eat the same dish 10 times with 10 different things in there, but you still get the same thing from the sauce. It's still that cuts through. Yeah. It's still got enough acidity. It's still got enough richness with that butter to kind of not bore you, really.
So availability and quality are really important as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it's not just about, we were talking off camera about how the weather's been a bit bad this year and that's caused scallops to be a bit of a nightmare to get. Potentially dishes are going to have to be changed, aren't they?
And they do have to be, yeah.
So availability, I suppose availability just becomes part of like seasonality, but with a catch is a bit more random, isn't it?
With some of the ingredients, it's important for us to have those core ingredients in our dry store, in our fridge, like what you supply us with, where we can have core ingredients we can rely on. You know what, we've got them in the dry store, whether it's in the fridge, whatever else, we know we can do this sauce with them, so that then when it comes to having to be flexible with the way that we buy fish, so we only want line caught fish, we don't want trawled fish, it just doesn't really work for us. So when it comes to that side of it, if you've got to move around and be flexible with the core ingredient, whether it's the piece of fish, the shellfish, you can rely on that quality of the other ingredients.
So the quality is not going up and down.
Exactly.
So the quality is staying, but the product might change just depending on availability and seasonality. But the quality is always there.
Yeah, and that's a choice that we make by using local, small dayboat fishermen rather than using massive trawlers from the North Sea.
But we were talking earlier off camera about Kuba in his flat looking out over the sea. Sounds idyllic, especially to any chefs who are like in London now looking at a brick wall out the window. But he's like, you can almost shout at the fishermen as he come in, what's on your boat? And then that's what's in the restaurant tonight. I mean, how cool is that?
And that's real life, yeah. That's how it works. It's cool. Like, it's the way we choose to live makes it different. So, what you want to do with that now is get a piece of bread and
I'm desperate to get some of that butter on that bread. But I'm waiting. Right, I'm a crust guy, so I'm going to get the crust off the back and stick some of this badass butter on it. Oh, immediately can tell it's got red miso.
Yeah. So we used to use white. We used to use a sweeter whiter miso. Mm. The understanding that we've sort of developed, and using more of the products, we've trialed it with lots of different things, and then the red one just felt right when we put it in the first time. We're like,
especially if you want that acidic tang that you get from fermentation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's aged for 12 months of red, whereas a white is only aged for 6 months.
Yeah.
I say red and white, but mostly actually what is red and white is actually Shinshu miso, not Shiro miso, because it comes from most miso, the big manufacturers, most of the manufacturers, there's loads, but like a lot of them are from Nagano. That's like the home of miso. That's not the home. They'll all argue about me saying that. So a lot of miso comes from Nagano. It's very famous for miso, and theirs is Shinshu miso. So, but there's so many little regional varieties of it that it's easy to just say white and red.
Yeah.
And red, there tends to be a longer aged Shinshu miso, which is what this will be.
Yeah, and then when we've used like in desserts or when you're looking for like loads of depth, we go into that sort of really dark miso. Again, so different. I mean, rubbish for butter.
Yeah.
But ace for other stuff. Whether it's in cures or anything like that. Like, so we experiment.
Caramel's good with the dark ones.
Yeah. Back when I was with Gaz, we used to make a treacle tart with it, and it was unbelievable. It was really tasty. So, you know, that thing again is like, we used to use white miso and thinking, or the lighter miso, thinking, you know, this was lovely. I think it was one of them things where we're like, let's just try it with something different, and it's transformed it. And
well, that's the next level of product knowledge and expertise. So you get to a level where you're happy with it, like you do maybe when you first open, and then you learn more about produce, and you can think, right, okay, so I'm going to try it with miso 1, 2, 3, and know why. And like we said, you want that lactic tang from fermentation, so maybe you're going to go a little bit further. The dark miso, hacho miso, isn't just aged for longer. It's like a different ratio blend as well. So you've got like the 3 main grains for miso, or main things it's made out of: soybean, mame miso, rice, which is koji miso, sometimes called saikyo miso, and then there's barley miso, mugi miso, which is from the south, because shochu is made out of barley as well.
We use barley as well.
So they're the main ones, but then and then there's the aging, there's the ratios, there's so many different other things you can put in it, blend in with it. But like the darker ones tend to be the ones that are almost completely just made out of soybean. But like the white one, although it is still technically a soybean miso, a mame miso, they put loads of koji rice in it as well, which gives it more sweetness.
Yeah.
So they're all really different. It's like its own universe, really. I find it really interesting.
A palette of flavours, isn't it?
Yeah.
The same thing, but with this dish, I like mopping the butter and the bread in there as much as I do eating the fish.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's that.
I love it. Get the gravy in.
Makes you feel like you're at home, doesn't it?
Love it.
Mopping up.
I noticed in some of your dishes you've got like furikake.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know what furikake means, it's kind of a seasoning that
goes
on top. It can be all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
But nori's an interesting flavour, isn't it? Because people who don't eat fish that much might think, oh, it tastes like fish, but it doesn't. It tastes like breathing in the sea.
We use lots of different grades of nori. Obviously, you know, there's all sorts of different ones, and some of them that are graded higher might not necessarily be what you're looking for in that dish, which is really good, because you know you might be looking for the A++ standard of nori, and if you're going to toast it, turn it into a whatever, or put it into a soy, it might not be the best one. That one might be better off used in the furikake, and then the one that we toast might have a slightly different depth of flavour for something that'll go into the soy. So
you might be paying for crispiness, and if you're putting that in the soy,
it's useless.
It's a waste of time.
It's useless, and that's about knowing your product and about knowing what it's for. And like if it's for a good texture, then it's ace to go in the furikake. That whole thing, like we make our furikake with some beautiful nori that we toast, so it gives it that great crispiness and almost like a sesame quality to it.
Yeah, it wakes it up, doesn't it?
It does. It just like pops. But then when we make a powder with it, because we toast it a bit further, we make a powder just to dust over the dish, more for like aroma as it hits the table. We use a different one.
Yeah,
so
it looks quite pretty when you powder it as well, doesn't it? I went to a nori factory near Mount Fuji a few months ago, and when you get the nori before they start processing it, it's dried. But it's not toasted. So if you want to taste it, you can taste it like that, but the texture's a bit wrong. They have like a special, almost like a tiny little cornrow just off to one side, and they'll just sort of like quickly waft it over it just to crisp it up. But they do that just before they eat it, because you get the perfect flavour just releases that flavour. It's like, I suppose it's like toasting spices when you're making a curry.
100%. And we just, it's one of the last jobs we do before we set up for service. So beauty of what we do is we bring everybody up at the same time. So all of our guests will arrive, they'll go downstairs, they'll sit in the bar, and then once they're sat in the bar, they get a drink, they'll see the menu, they'll enjoy themselves. Everybody gets together, and then we bring everybody up all at the same time. So we bring everybody up for, say, dinner, for example, of like 7:30, because everybody wants 7:30 anyway. Book a table, 7:30 or 8. Like when 7:30 and 8 have gone, nobody wants to come. So we might as well get everybody up, and it makes setting the fire good for us. So it's as much as it is like a lovely atmosphere in the restaurant and everything starts off really well, and there's loads of positives we've found from doing it, and it only came through COVID. Like the only reason we started to do that was out of necessity, because we were light-handed for COVID, and I was like, how the hell am I going to cook for all these people at the same time. I mean, all these people were a 20 cup restaurant. It's not massive, but when you're trying your best, it's 20 people. So,
and doing, you're not doing one dish either, are you?
Exactly.
Doing like multi-course menu.
You know, you release 10. So we did it out of necessity because I thought the only way for me to get around this is to cook for everybody at the same time. And if I'm cooking a turbot, I'll cook the whole thing, I'll take it off the bone, and then I'll serve it to everybody. And then the quality of that really, like, then we built on and built on and built on, and we're like, actually, why didn't we do this ages before, and why don't other people do this? Because in terms of quality, like, you can be 100% focused. When Charlie cooks a turbot, for example, or when Cuba cooks the lamb, or, you know, if one of us is cooking the scallops or the bream or whatever it is, you are 100% focused on that. You're not doing like a turbot, a scallop, a bream, and the crab, because you're on the fish section, and you've got to get them all coming up to the pass, and they're all in line with their dishes, which is what normally works if you're on the fish section. You know, you've got everything going on. But for us, like, they're just on that job, and they can be with that job from the start to the finish, and then they take it off the bone, take it to the pass, and they've followed it the whole way through, so that they're 100% invested and concentrating on it. And then one of the other, like, so I'll get the plates up and start assembling garnish. Cuba will finish any hot garnish that goes with it. So you actually then can focus fully on it. So it kind of, out of something that was, you know, a bit shit with us having to do it in the first place, what came out of it afterwards was like eureka moment.
Well, this is the way you want to do it anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of things have happened like that from COVID, haven't they? So, like, obviously COVID wasn't great for anyone.
No.
But you think, okay, this is the way it is now. Can we take any of these compromises and make these like actual changes that we want to do? And also, rather than seeing it as a negative that we're asking our guests to compromise for us, we'll turn this into part of the experience. And, you know, it's a contract between us and the guest, you know, that we're going to create this experience. You need to invest a little bit of effort into it as well. And
well, just for them to get here, they've invested a lot of effort, and it's miles away from anywhere.
Wow, tell me about it.
You know what? That's the thing. I sort of park your business head away from COVID, because it didn't do any good for anybody unless you were selling PPE. But basically, like, I look at it as this restaurant would never be where it is now in the 3 years that we've opened had we have not been through such a traumatic event, which was that. So I look at it as, you know, there's a lot of parts to look at. I think, like, we wouldn't have brought the guests all at the same time, which means that we wouldn't have been able to, like, toast nori at the last second just before you serve it, because it would be impossible. Also, like, the way that we cook has changed. The staff, I mean, I've had the same staff with us since we came back from the first lockdown, and, you know, the guys have been here for 2.5 years. We haven't really, I think we've had one member of staff from the restaurant that have changed front of house. We've still got the same amazing kitchen porter. The kitchen porter doesn't do her justice, but, you know, so our core staff have stayed with us for so long.
It's so important, isn't it?
And we've just built and built and built, and, like, that's given us the foundations to, and we wouldn't be where we are now if we hadn't have had that 6 months on, 6 months off, 6 months on, 6 months off. Because in the gaps, we were, like, becoming who we are, and having a reset and everything else, and changing the way we looked at stuff. And so, yeah, the shit stuff was shit, but the good stuff that's come out of it, I think you've got to look at that, because otherwise you'd beat yourself up. But in 3 years, we got best new opening, you know, we won a Michelin Star, we did okay on GBM, we did all these other things, like Good Food Guide, we're in the top 20, all these things, you just, like, you know, they are
some big positives to take out of a bad time,
you know what I mean? Like,
aren't they?
yeah, we're at a book. Do you know what I mean? Like, that sort of stuff you just don't do, because you're so into it, and almost like we've now become in charge of the restaurant, which sounds nuts, because when you open a restaurant, you know, the tail wags the dog for the first bit, because you kind of just trying to get all to where you are. Whereas now it's the dog wagging the tail, so we've got hold of it, and now, you know, setting the dinner times, setting everything else, like, makes a big difference for us, and it means that we can then keep building on the quality. And so
you've caught up to yourself, haven't you?
And got control of it.
Yeah, with what was happening with COVID, you kind of, like, I think people who did well, when I say do well, I don't mean benefited from it, but, like, got through it in a way that wasn't too damaging, was the ones who thought, hang on a minute, okay, I've got a lot of spare time here.
Yeah.
What can I do that's going to have a long-term positive impact? Whether that's improve myself by learning, whether that's by we did the first series of this show I suppose you call it a show.
Yeah.
During COVID, in April, I think 21, when everyone was closed, but allowed to go into the kitchen to do development and stuff. And we were like, what can we do? And I was like, well, everyone's in the kitchens and no one's open. So, and everyone's buzzing to try something new. So I was like, right, okay, let's just go and see people and take them some stuff, have some chats, and we'll try some food. And actually, it was great. I really enjoyed doing it. And
it was good to watch, wasn't it? Like, we were all looking for stuff. Like, we've exhausted YouTube by this point, you know what I mean?
Completed
it was like,
YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's a bit surreal, really, being asked to do stuff like this, being asked to do all these other things, you know, whether it's podcasts. It's just nuts, and I don't think we'd have been there if we hadn't been through that. So, you know, in one sense, bad, very bad. Other sense, you know what, take the positives from it and roll with it. And you know, that's where we are now, and we've got an exciting, you know, 12, 18 months where I think we need to take it up a next level, really, with like, you know, we've got these amazing ingredients, we've got these brilliant suppliers, we've kind of built that infrastructure behind us now for us to now be able to push and go the next step and to keep evolving, which I think is really important. And you know, with everything, with being really busy last year from the GBM thing, like, it's so good now to kind of almost start new year and really start looking at development and moving forward.
it sort of like contracts in on itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it changes the texture, and Cuba just putting that hot coal on it, and this is, like we said, we use special charcoals for special things, but the bitutan is very important for us because it's got that heat and it doesn't lose its heat. And other charcoal, when you touch it against something like this, fragments and becomes like...
Do you get loads of the charcoal dust on the thing?
Yeah, a little bit. I think you get a little bit. Like, you could smell it a little bit as well, which is good.
I was going to say, that smell of the charcoal, the smell of the burnt sugar, it all kind of gets you a little bit salivating.
It's so different to like toasting with a blowtorch, because you get the caramelized sugar smell.
Yeah.
But this, you get that charcoal smell, don't you? Like, you get like that toasted marshmallow over a fire, which is kind of what we're going for.
Well, can I let you into a little secret? I've seen you do this before, and I tried to copy it in my back garden in the summer. So I've got a little conro, and obviously I got bitutan.
Yeah.
So I got a piece of bitutan out, and I got my daughter's marshmallows out, and I tried to do your thing on her marshmallows, and I just screwed it up.
Does it stick?
It stuck to it, it got covered in charcoal, it was just disgusting. I just completely cut it up, and she just was annoyed that I'd ruined a marshmallow.
Yeah. Well, I hope this is better than that. But yeah, it is that thing, like getting the charcoal hot enough, and it, you know, it's silly things like this. Knowing how hot you need something, it's the same as when you're about to cook a piece of fish over charcoal. You need to read the room, really. Like, you need to see how hot it is, when to go down. So
that's going back to sort of like being cooking on fire is very much about feeling an experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's it. So with this one, you want to go in as a single bite.
Okay. And what's inside it again?
You've got a very, very thin little pastry case, like a brick pastry tart case. There's a yuzu curd, so that really beautiful yuzu juice. We get loads of lovely floral acidity.
Nice roundness.
Exactly.
That is with it as well.
We use this as like a pre-dessert, if you like a little snack course between like your cheese and then going into the sweet things. So it's intentionally sweet. We don't. Sometimes you want a pre-dessert or a little snack between them to be kind of like you know, a good crossover course. It's not a crossover. This is an intentionally sweet pre-dessert. So.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Should we dive in?
Let's do it. Cheers.
Cheers.
There's no talking, is there?
It's a full mouthful.
It's so creamy and foamy. I was expecting the meringue to be a little, not quite so light. It's almost like foamy, dense foam.
Yeah, that texture has changed because we've hit it with the charcoal.
Yeah.
So it's like the inside of a melted marshmallow.
Yeah.
Where it kind of,
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, you can't, I was trying to talk, I was eating it, I was like, no, there's no way I'm talking.
But it's good because it kind of makes you smile, because it makes you, all the sides of your mouth with the acidity, they're working, you've got the crunch, and then you've got that really lovely sweetness from the marshmallow like meringue that sat on top.
Yeah, and you get that familiarity of lemon curd or lemon curd tart or a lemon meringue. But I think when you've got lemon in a meringue, which obviously is classic, the acidity gets you a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas the yuzu, I really liked it because it just gave it more It was a one bite, like you say.
It's more balanced,
harmonised.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
But it's good. Whenever I eat them, I eat them too much really. But it always makes me smile. You know, and it's kind of like the fact that you're like, all of your gums are like, there's acidity there, there's sweetness there, there's a crunch there, there's a little bit of bitterness, there's almost a little charcoaly like smokiness to it.
Yep.
But very subtle. So kind of got a lot going on, and it always just makes you smile. It kind of like, you know, like that nostalgic, bang, gone, it's
Brilliant.
done.
Amazing, loved it.
But it's cool, a cool little introduction then to the sweet side of the menu. So, you know, we talk about it all the time, and we've spoken about it a lot today, but that familiarity with, it's a classic. It's a classic for a reason, because it's good. But we've just put our own little slant on it by burning it with a charcoal, by using yuzu and not with using lemon. But it can't just be any yuzu. Like that's the other thing. You know, if it's like a yuzu concentrate or something like that, that's really aggressively acidic.
It almost tastes a bit chemically, don't they?
Yeah, they're really imbalanced. So by using the best yuzu we can get hold of, it makes it very different. So a little goes a long way with it as well.
And I don't think it's not like, oh, we better make it a bit different. It's better for having it, the yuzu over the lemon.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So you've now got a platform of a good team. You've got a nice building. You've got some great dishes. You've got the suppliers in place that you're happy with, and you've got all the accolades. What do you do from here, isn't it? That's the question. It's like you're you've done all that hard work to get here, but now you're here. You can stand on that platform. You've got to go forwards, haven't you?
Yeah.
So like, where do you reckon you're going to take that platform, and what you're going to do with it?
I didn't expect to be here so quick. I think as a team, we've achieved everything in the last couple of years that you kind of set out as like your career goals, which I think is what's strange about like stars and all that sort of stuff, because you kind of put them like way up there with what you're looking to achieve in your career, and then when you get there, you're a bit like, it's a little bit surreal. I mean, we've had a star for nearly a year, and you're like, it still doesn't really. I honestly don't think it's changed us or the way that the restaurant is. The way the restaurant was perceived has changed massively, but I feel like we were doing this, well, we must have been because we got the star, but we were doing this before. So your career goals have really altered, because you've kind of got there, but you put them that far down the road as being like, I must achieve this before I retire. When you get them, you've still got 30 years left on the road. You're like, okay, what do we do next? So I think it just takes a year to settle in, and again, it's another one of them big shifts, isn't it? Yeah. You know, where you go, okay, cool, let's settle. Like after you've opened, you settle, then you push. This one, settle, and then we'll push again. And we didn't change anything to get the star. We didn't change anything to get any of the accolades. We just wanted to be more ourselves. We don't ever sit down and go like, right, we really must do this. But we just want to keep going, like doing cool stuff. And as long as I keep the team with us, as long as we can, I mean, inevitably they're going to move on and go on to hopefully bigger and better things and do their own thing. And
you want stability, but you also need freshness, and it's finding that balance of not just having people coming in and out all the time and like going, oh, I've had enough of this, I'm out of here, and I've got no staff, and all that stress with the fluctuations. But on the flip side of it, you want people to do, like 2 years-ish, 3 years maybe, and
7, 8 years. Yeah.
but you've got like a queue of people who really want to come and join, who are sound, you know what I mean? And then you have that sort of like freshness coming in, which keeps the lifeblood going.
Because it keeps where we are in the world as well. We're in a bit of a bubble, really, like with all sorts of stuff. From like, if people are talking about the restaurant or not talking about the restaurant, you don't hear about it here because we're in our little bubble. So stuff like staff that are looking at it, and like, we don't know if there's loads of people that want to come work here or not, because we've never needed to advertise for chefs here, because we've got a great team that have been here. When we've done the casual stuff, don't get me wrong, the staff change a lot more there, but for here, it's just been us. So it's quite weird, really. It's quite surreal that it has just been us for the whole duration of it. And like I say, eventually things will change and whatever else, but it's just been cool having like a crew of like ace fellas and ladies that are just get it and cooking on fire. Like, it's a new challenge. It's been a new challenge for all of us. And like the restaurants that I'd worked at in the past were not fire-based restaurants. Like, I've not come from anywhere that's put a big barbecue in the middle of the kitchen and said, right, this is what we're cooking on. But it's what we did 3 years ago, and to be honest with you, I thought I was quite equipped to do it, but it wasn't until we started getting into it, you're like, wow, there's a lot of learning. You know, and we spoke about this earlier, like people that that sort of commit themselves to doing like really authentic Japanese grilling, like, you know, the way that they learn how to stack the coals, the bichitan, whatever it is they're cooking on. It's not something that comes overnight. Like, we developed that and we kind of built it over the course of a few years to what it is now, because before that we were just finishing on fire, whereas now we go more into like cooking from raw over the fire. So, you know, whereas before you'd water bath a lamb and then you'd chuck it on the fire, or a barbecue, grill it, finish it, perfect, move on. We don't do that anymore. Like, we've invested more into it so that we can actually cook from you know, raw ingredient to finished product, and it's changed massively. And then we start bringing stuff like, you know, desserts into it, and the way that we caramelise a meringue, or the way that we'll do certain other things, starting to get that from the fire. You're like, wow, this is pretty cool. So it is really different. So
a friend of mine who's a chef in Japan, when we went to a yakitori restaurant in Tokyo, and it was like quite a nice fine dining one. It wasn't sort of like your boozer sort of one where, you know, you're having a drink and they're cooking, you know, the fried chicken.
Yeah.
It was like a lovely cedar wood counter.
Yeah.
And it was like omakase, so it was like a set menu, tasting menu. He was saying, the Japanese chef was like, he thinks that the cooking on fire, the yakitori chef in this instance, is the hardest thing to get right, because it's all about feeling and it's constantly changing. The wood's at different temperatures, it's different size wood, it's at a different stage during the burn, the meat or whatever you're cooking is, every single thing's different, and it's a constant flow, and you kind of need the experience and the feel, and that's that. There's no automation. So it's all about the people.
Yeah. And we always laugh, because we'll build a fire for service and the fire's always hot, but some days it's hotter than normal, right? And we always laugh about it, because it's just like the thing you say, but we'll be like, oh, it's a hot fire tonight. Like, there's no such thing as a cold fire, but when you have, whether it's a fresh bag of charcoal or a different batch from the charcoal maker, and they're all very different, because obviously they're using coppiced woods, or they're using different sized wood to go into the charcoal, or maybe you'll get, like, when they build the kiln, you've got the bigger wood in the middle, smaller on the outside. If you've got a bag that's been pulled out from the sides, it's smaller, middle, it's bigger. When you're burning it, it makes a big difference in the heat. So when you chuck a bag on and you light it, it varies massively. But we'll walk past the fire and one of the boys will say, like, "Oh, it's a hot fire tonight." And it just changes. You never walk past the solid top, do you, and go like, "Oh, it's hotter than normal tonight," or "It's colder than normal," because you put it on that setting, it's done.
Yeah.
You know, a 6-burner induction, it's always exactly the same, give or take a couple of degrees. Whereas with the fire, sometimes you put it on, you build the same size fire, you'll set it up, start at the same time of day, and then, you know, you then need to work it with the fire rake, or with a blow poker, or with a fan, to get it up to temperature, or to spread it out to cool it down before you can cook on it. So it keeps it interesting, because a lot of the dishes will stay the same at a restaurant. Like, we keep our dishes quite similar for quite a while, probably more so than we ever have done now, because we want to perfect them, we want to get them really good, rather than change them all the time. And, you know, we had times where we had, you know, 6-8 month waiting list, or sort of like no free tables for 6 or 8 months. So we knew that the guests that were going to come weren't going to be back every week. You know, now for a Saturday, we're 6 months or 7 months ahead of ourselves. It means that we then don't need to change dishes every week, because we'd only be changing them for ourselves. Whereas rather than trying to get them as good as they possibly can be, it means they stay on the menu a bit longer, and then that could be boring, but it's not, because the fire's different every day. So although the ingredients are quite similar, the style, you know, our service is fairly similar, the fire makes it interesting, it makes it new every single day. This is where really SushiSushi fits into us as a restaurant, and kind of helps us elevate and keep going and finding these weird and wonderful ingredients, producers. You know, you've just had a few little dishes there, which is a taste of what you really help us do. And, you know, that familiarity, that sort of keep going back to that classic combinations, but then elevated with beautiful, wholesome Japanese or Asian ingredients. It's kind of where that's where SushiSushi comes into it for us, and helps. And I think the closer that our relationship is with you, with going out there and finding these ingredients and producers, and then for us having the knowledge when you come back and being able to tell us a story and explain why, where, when, how. I think that's the future for us really, and how you fit into it for us in the future, and then it'll help us keep getting better and better and better. So, thanks for all that hard work and everything else, because it saves us from going to Japan, doesn't it? So.
Mate, I really appreciate it. For me, it's just like to have people who are interested in what we do just gives us the opportunity to carry on doing what we love. Simple as that.
Yeah, simple that. Yeah.